if you could, I'd like to start off by, again, thanking you for having this time with me today. And if you could share with us your role and how long you've been involved with GSBA and a little bit about the organization.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I'm Mark Rosén. My pronouns are he, him. I've been part of GSBA for almost 25 years. I actually got involved when I was a salon owner. So I came to it because the chamber offered opportunities to promote my business and connect with other business owners and be part of an organization that looked like it was making a difference. And as that kind of goes, I got, more connected and convinced to join a committee. And it's sort of like, the new kid or the new mom at the PTA. Pretty soon I was like chairing a committee, and then I joined the board. And somewhere along there, I totally drank the Kool-Aid and became the board chair for 3 years. And it was a great opportunity to do a deeper dive in the organization, to work towards improving and expanding our mission. And about 6 years ago now, I did a complete change career-wise and joined the staff full-time and came on as a director of development. I've been passionate about our fundraising and very effective in that role, and they wanted me to come and do full-time work to continue to raise funds for the organization. So now I am the acting president and CEO as we are conducting a national search for a new CEO. And it's an exciting time. I've got a great board and an amazing staff to work with. So I'm very pleased to be in this role, but also looking forward to the next new leader that comes in and brings their own brand of energy and ideas so that we can marshal into the next decade for the organization.
So can you tell us a little bit about your membership? Who makes up the body of the membership? Staff, who's there? How big is the staff? And then in terms of membership, are many of them certified? Let's work out who's in the group and how do they show up and what do they look for in the group?
Yeah, so we're currently a membership of close to 1,300 people. We did lose a few businesses last year during the pandemic, unfortunately, but we have new businesses joining. The majority of our members are small businesses. They're the lifeblood of your neighborhood community. They're the single person or maybe a couple who started their dream of having a great little restaurant or a little boutique store. And then there are also the nonprofits in the community. And of course, some of our big partners are some of the largest corporations in our region. So together, that membership of 1,300 people really represents networks of thousands. When we consider like our largest member corporations such as Microsoft and their LGBTQ employee resource groups, who are very involved. So the financial clout that it represents is huge. We have a board of 30 people. I'm happy to say that it's diverse and getting more diverse all the time. We've done a really extraordinary job of having gender equity on our board and in our membership for a long time. But as I think most institutions that have been around in sort of mainstream for a long time, we need to improve in the areas of bringing more racial diversity and ethnic diversity, and a broader kind of spectrum of talent to our board. We've done a great job of doing that with our staff. We have a staff of 15 really amazingly talented and passionate people. And it's a group I'm very happy to be working with. We're actually looking to hire a couple, at least one more person now. So we're doing a search for a new director of communications.
Oh, wow.
And we just recently brought on an amazing person who's been a long time sort of member of our community to lead our Capitol Hill Business Alliance program, which is the chamber that really concentrates on our historic LGBTQ neighborhood on Capitol Hill in Seattle. So I think that's kind of an overview of who we have. We are the largest voice for small business of any kind in the state. So, you know, and our membership is open to, of course, any allied businesses, as long as they embrace our mission of equality for all. And that really does mean equality for all. It's not just for our LGBTQ community, it's for the most marginalized communities. We've been very intentional about building relationships with our ethnic chambers and really trying to do a broader reach out into our community, especially with the pandemic. We last year created a fund called the Ready for Business Small Business Recovery Fund. And our founding partner for that was Comcast, NBC Universal. And that concentrated on giving cash grants and wraparound services to BIPOC, LGBTQ, and women-owned businesses. And we were, thrilled to select 65 of the 400 businesses that applied to receive grants. We're now in our second round, and we received over 3,000 applications. Yeah, so it's a little overwhelming, but it speaks highly to the need that's there. So we are in that process of going through all of those to make our second round of selections, and are committed to making this part of our ongoing work. That it's important to really try to lift up those businesses that were not part of the PPP when it first came out, or don't have the resources to navigate to even know how to access those kinds of things. So those wraparound services have been priceless, as they say. There's the cash part that's necessary, that really helps people out right now, but it's some of those other things that they just need help. And so we're doing our hardest to really do that sort of work in our community as well.
That is amazing. For the people that are in the community, especially in the Capitol Hill area, that experienced a whole lot of disruption during all that happened in 2020 and in the summer, and since then, it's really good to know that the chamber was there with open arms and trying really hard to provide the services that are needed in this time. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to jump into a little bit about. What are those core services that an affinity or LGBT specifically related chamber, what do you see that you provide that wouldn't be provided by the general and mainstream Chamber of Commerce?
Well, in many ways, they are the same kinds of things that could be provided, but most chambers of commerce in a city our size really are sort of built around the big players. Mm-hmm. And they don't offer quite as many services that really are accessible to the smallest business in the community. So I think the example I could use is that in our Ready for Business and our resource navigation classes that we were doing online, we contacted or had a business contact us from the Somali community. And they were, not equipped with the knowledge to know how to navigate an application for the PPP loans. They were very confusing at the beginning. And our staff member, Terea Miller, worked with them explained all the processes, helped them gather the necessary paperwork. And now that has translated through, really word of mouth to working with a whole community of Somali business owners. And that's something that doesn't really exist in that sort of mainstream traditional chamber. They're not our members when they start. We hope that they do become our members, but we're doing it because we believe in economic equity and that it doesn't have to be based on, the cost of admission, so to speak. That it's important if we really embrace equality for all, that we take more action in the community. So there is that. I think the part that is unique to our chamber, of course, is that we provide the alignment with, other minority groups, and really have always that social justice lens that we bring, that it's not just about, signing checks or going to mixers and having a nice glass of rosé with somebody. It's about what are the laws that are being proposed that affect small businesses? What are the, statutes that are in place that could change your eligibility for something? And how do we represent you as the voice for small business when it comes to, our statewide legislation and also our city and county. So we are there representing that voice, and then especially with things like education with our scholarship fund. That's a huge important area, and we know one of the quickest ways to impact a person's earning potential and therefore their family's economic welfare, their community, is really through access to education. And that area I am so proud of, in that for decades we have had a huge amount of diversity in the scholars that we support, and they are going on to doing absolutely incredible work that I could not even imagine. The downside of that is I look and see what they're doing after having been homeless or kicked out or dumpster diving for their dinner, and now they're research scientists, and it makes me feel lazy and not very smart to see them do that. So, so it's on that social justice lane, I think, that we've been firmly in for a long time. That probably puts the unique part of it for us.
Yeah, I'd say so. I've visited quite a few of the different chambers around the country and met so many wonderful people. But I would say that's probably a unique quality, to squarely stand in that social justice space and provide that support to a broad array of people and their experiences, and then to have this opportunity to really work on the pipeline, if you will, because you're going back and helping students to get their step, get their footing, give them a clear path. Hey, we're going to help you out. And it's so amazing because most of the time, if you give a person just a little, right, they'll take it. They're so happy to have it, and they make it work, and then they come back. How often do you have members or some of your scholars come join? Does that happen?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. So we're just completing the process to select our new cohort for next year. And it's an incredible, amazing process. So we support 60 scholars. This year, 17 graduated, so we will bring 17 new scholars in. And it's support for up to 4 years. So, which is unique in the scholarship world. But to select those 17 scholars, it takes over 100 volunteers, reading applications, conducting interviews, meeting together as a team. And of those 100 and some volunteers this year, 27 of them were returning scholars. They were scholar alumni who believe in the program so much that they want to give back. They were, thrilled that we did it virtually this year so they could do it from wherever they were in the country. And a number of them are donors. Several of them are major donors at this point, and several of them have served on our board. Wow. So it's investment paying off in really every way you can imagine. And it like just gives me kind of, tingles when I came into that Zoom room with, all those people, and to see all those faces, some scholars who I had seen, hadn't seen in years, but still that connection is there. So they definitely are paying it forward.
And that's fabulous. So we're talking about the students, and we've talked a little bit about the current membership. I want to move into a little bit about the certification, LGBTBE certification. Do you have members that are certified, and have you been able to help businesses grow from being, like you said, the boutique shop that's just on Main Street or wherever, Capitol Hill, and then grow into something bigger that they want to be in the supply chain of, let's say, a Microsoft or whomever? Has that happened? And what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to call out my, coworker, Ilona Lowride, who is the champion LGBTQ BE certification expert in the country. She has recently, certified more businesses than any other person. So we have, I don't actually know the exact number, but we have a very high number of certified businesses. And we just came off a week of doing our this year virtual matchmaker event, which was 3 days long. And it was explaining to people the benefits of being certified, the steps to take to do it. And then there was the matchmaker element where businesses had an opportunity to actually do a biz pitch to some corporate supplier diversity officers who would evaluate their pitch and give them constructive, feedback. So for the future. And then one of those businesses was selected to win a grant award. And in the past, they would have also been traveled to, when it was the national convention, they would have traveled to that as part of that sort of winning the biz pitch. Mm-hmm. But we have seen examples of many of those companies go on to get contracts with either, corporate partners or with the county. Mm-hmm. And grow their business and continue to see opportunity. So one that I could talk about would be Brand Pride, which was a fairly small company that did printed T-shirts for Pride and did your water bottles or your swag for events. And they have just continued to grow and get contracts really around the country. Mm-hmm. And are really a true success story. But there's others. The other thing that we really emphasize to people when they do get certification, because some companies that are very, very small, they think, well, how am I going to sell my muffins to, a huge corporation? And we encourage them to think of it, and the corporate supplier diversity officers do this as well, to think of it in different ways, that you can become a tier 3, you can be the provider to the provider that is the person who is doing the contract, or you can start small. We had one member who has a great, if you like biscuits, these are good biscuits. And he made a pitch at Matchmaker a couple of years ago, and Starbucks followed up with him to, just start very small in a couple stores. But it was enough to start to make a difference for that owner to grow the business. So we encourage people to think about it in an expansive way, that, you may not be making widgets for rockets that, the government is going to buy, but maybe you make something little that can go into the supply chain that will eventually be part of that contract. And so the benefit is there, and the connection and the education about how to make a pitch, whether you're doing it to a corporate supplier diversity officer or whether you're just doing it to a new potential customer. We can all improve our, our business approach. So the benefits are sort of multifaceted and not always like just evident to people, but they definitely exist. And so we are totally championing that all the time. Plus, we're also, encouraging people to get every other kind of certification that they can. So if you're women-owned, if you're veteran-owned, if you are, differently abled, whatever you can get a certification, you should get it, because if it helps you lift up your business, then it's doing everyone a service.
So if you had to sum up, what's the pitch for new members when you're telling them about the chamber? What is it that you tell them that they're going to receive by becoming a member?
So that's a great question. I think the biggest benefit that you get by becoming a GSBA member is that we amplify the voice that you have. That if you are one small business, you're able to, manage that business, hopefully keep your employees happy, keep your customers happy. But when it comes time to like new regulations that the city has imposed or new tax initiatives that are coming on the ballot, and you want to weigh in on those, you want your voice heard, by becoming part of our chamber, we will make sure that that happens. We listen, we provide testimony, we share those stories, and we hope that our politicians listen to us. And one of the sort of concrete examples of that is that we authored the legislation last year to create the first ever LGBTQ commission for the state. We were the only minority group that did not have a statewide commission. So now we do. And whenever there's legislation in Olympia, they are reviewing all of those things to make sure that they are in alignment with keeping our community whole and equal, and advancing the causes that will, really help create equality for everybody in our society. So those are two of the main things. And then the philanthropic arm is also a big way for our businesses to, make sure that they're giving back and that they're doing it in a way that brings a great return on their investment. So I think those are probably the big points, but of course I could go on for an hour.
Exactly. They are the best points. I mean, the fact that you give people that comfort that I'm going to join this organization and it's confident, it's warm, it's embracing, it's supportive, and I wouldn't have to worry about making my donation there because I know it's going to be going to a good cause. It's generative. Everything you've explained to me just talks about, when I hear it, it's like I put in 2 cents, I'm going to get $1 back. It's like it's going to make more and more for everybody, which is really a beautiful thing. I'm just, I guess we should just move on to your corporate partners. It looks like they get a lot out of this as well. What do you say the value proposition is to these members?
So our corporate partners, it's really evolved over time. Back in the day, our corporate partners were all alcohol companies. They were looking to be sponsors in a parade. They associated our community with, bars and things like that. But that's really changed. And now I think, especially with the focus on corporate social responsibility and really making intentional changes in corporate structures, that we see that engagement being more one of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
that it's not just about getting my logo on an invitation so that I'm seen as being, supportive. It's about engaging intentionally, having your employee resource groups become volunteers or giving them a chance to connect with other company employee resource groups. And to really be ensuring that they're not just talking the talk, but they're walking that talk by making intentional investments in the community and giving back. So we are not interested in XYZ corporation coming in and saying, we want to give you a whole bunch of money, and we just want our logo on things. We don't need to be involved in anything. It's like, well, no, we want you to be involved. We want to see real change. And that's driven by, I think, the employees. That, these days there's a lot of competition for talent. And in a city like Seattle that needs a lot of talent to keep those big companies, moving and growing, those employees don't want to work for people who they don't see doing good things in the community, and they will vote with their feet. So I think corporations have no choice but to, start to make change, to look inward, to, in the same way that we as a nonprofit have to do that, to look at our own systems, to look at, how we've perpetuated oppression or systems of racism and, white supremacy, and, and have real conversations and difficult conversations. And corporations need to do that too if they want to keep employees happy, and allow those employees to show up, be their authentic selves, give the best of what a company needs, really access their true talents. And that's a change, I think, where it's not just top down, it's about that engagement factor. And so for us, it's all about alignment. When I'm meeting with a corporate partner now, I say, we have the traditional levels. You can be a sponsor at gold, silver, platinum, whatever. But unless you sell one of those things, that means nothing. If what you do is you're about, innovation in healthcare, then let's create a program. Let's put you where you can engage with people about that, share your information, and let's call you that. Let's call you our health partner or our student empowerment partner or whatever it might be. Let's make it a real relationship, not just one that's like, hey, you send a paper, I send a paper, now we've got your logo and we have a nice check. We want to do something good with it, and we want you to feel like it is a great investment as well.
I'm just wondering, is there a chamber historian, or because this sounds like an amazing story, and I think it's like textbook. I mean, better than textbook. It's like Disney or like some kind of fairy tale, because the idea of and just to disclose, I'm an ally to the LGBT community. I grew up with my mother in supplier diversity for IBM in particular. So I saw what was happening between major companies and brands and small businesses. I saw my mother, a single woman, working really hard to do what you said, to provide support and figure out any way she could to get IBM dollars into the hands of small businesses in our town and in the area. And I watched it grow. And then to later find out that there was an NGLCC. And after I left, I actually was also an IBMer at some point, but had the opportunity to engage. I was a management consultant for many years. I've looked at businesses from the 50,000 foot view and had experience in them as well. And the thing that was amazing is the fact that you could actually make a difference, and that these big brands have the ability to inject resources into the community. And when it's done well, those resources are generative. If the organization is run well, that money goes in. And the thing that you're talking about, giving them a role and not just a a gem level, ruby, or platinum, or you're saying you'll be my health partner. It's giving agency to the organizations within. They have a responsibility, and then they know when they show up who to look for, and people who want to look for that know to come look. And so I would gather from this, you are experiencing pretty good engagement with your corporate partners, because it's probably an exciting thing to do, to have a purpose other than a check.
And I think it's even, more so now. That what's wonderful to see is that we are hearing from, with Pride Month coming up, it always, generates a lot of employee sort of engagement. And so I've heard from a couple, just this past week, a couple representatives of some corporate, entities in the area that are not members, but are now finally reaching out to find out, how do we form an LGBTQ ERG? How can we become involved? How can we make an investment? Can you help us? And, and they're getting support from their executives. So it's interesting to see that, there's a kind of groundswell of change happening, where it might have only been, the liquor companies years ago, and then one or two small corporations, and then it's growing and growing. And those conversations, they say, well, I see what Symetra did for you, or I see how Fred Hutch is engaging, or Puget Sound Energy is engaging, and how can we do something like that? We want to do more. We see that there's a need in the community at so many different levels, and we want to do more. So it actually makes more work for us, but it's the kind of work that we love. That,
Right.
When I can come into my home office now in the morning and, sign on and start to think about, like, what's going to make a change? Not just, what is the networking thing that we're going to have coming up, but what's going to make a change? How can we elevate some voices and amplify other needs in the community, and really have an impact that goes beyond, what networking does. There's a place for all of that.
Absolutely.
Community is important, connecting is important, but without that sort of deeper purpose,
Yeah.
I don't think it's, you have to question what the sort of mission is. So it's just great to see people want to be part of that, and especially our allied community want to be part of that. So, it cracks me up when we still sometimes get questions about, like, well, I'm not LGBTQ, can I join? It's like, well, do you, believe in human rights? Do you want to make change in the community? Do you want to give your, the privilege that you might have to help support others? Then why aren't you already a member?
Right.
So, it is expansive, and it should be.
So what is your ally membership like that's not their job? So it's not corporate folks that are involved. Is there, from the community, ally business members and professionals?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a growing area where our membership keeps on expanding, and oftentimes it's, it is that sort of one-to-one connection where you go to, I frequent a bakery that I love, and the owners are not LGBTQ, but they are a great little community bakery, and so the kind of things that I know that they give back to the community, it's a natural. They should be part of our organization. And we also get a huge amount of people who the door that they enter our sort of realm through is our scholarship fund. And so many people are moved by looking at their own history, whether they come from one of disadvantage or advantage, that can relate to the fact that education can change their lives.
Can change everything.
And so oftentimes they'll say, I came to your gala and I was like hooked. And so a great example would be our member, DML Insurance. Dina Levine is a straight ally. She was invited to Equalux Taste of GSBA, our scholarship fundraiser, many years ago. She was moved by the mission, but loved all the people, made lots of great connections. It was a great party. And so she became a donor, and then she became a major donor. Then she joined our board and sponsored different events. And she's like so GSBA that you wouldn't, she's more GSBA than I am. And her and her husband come to almost everything that we do, and she brings other members along as well. So it's an open door if you're willing to embrace diversity and you believe in making a change. Then it's a welcome place to be, and it's ever growing. So we love that.
I think we've covered just about as many things as I could have imagined. There's only one area we haven't talked about, and that was, is it out Seattle, or is there a tourism type of? Could you tell me a little bit about the organization and how it works to bolster the pillars of what you do?
Yeah, so Travel Out is a program of GSBA, and we created that a number of years ago in sort of response to our state eliminating the Office of Tourism. And Seattle is hard to beat when it comes to natural beauty and great places to eat, and we're a hop, skip, and a jump from the mountains and from Vancouver, Canada, or the east side of our state, which is the second largest wine growing state in our country. And so we wanted to create a program that would bring awareness and a spotlight on our tourism and hospitality members. And so we worked with them, including Visit Seattle and many of our great hotels here, our restaurateurs, and created a program where people can visit the site, become aware of places to go to when they come to town, hear about opportunities to, visit amazing sites, and then when conventions were happening, we would send representatives to the ILGA and other conventions around the country to promote Seattle. So we've seen a huge increase during normal times of our tourism, our LGBTQ tourism to Seattle, and it's the sort of inverse of that has been that during the pandemic, where tourism really fell off, a lot of our businesses were really crippled by that. So we're ready and raring to go. We love our tourism partners. Alaska Airlines, our hometown airline, is a great partner, so we keep in very close contact with them. And then around the state, I just came back a couple weekends ago from connecting with some members in Walla Walla, which is one of our wine capitals, and they're ready and raring to invite people back once people are more vaccinated and feel safe and following all safety protocols. And so we're hoping this summer that as the economy opens up more, that tourism will come back to Seattle and see all the beauty. Don't believe the hype that we were all destroyed this summer by our social justice activity. We are a region that believes in social justice. We're very passionate about it. But the city is still here. We're still thriving, and the doors are still open. And we want to welcome people home, as I say. It's like, this is a place to come and experience the kinds of things you won't find anywhere else in the country.
I'm so happy that I had this idea, that I wanted to take a look at what's going right. I'm always a believer in shining a light on what's going well so we can grow it, right? Everybody else is talking about what's wrong. I'll let them talk about it. I
Yeah.
really want to see exactly what you shared with us, um, through email and the answers to questions that we have. But then even to have this face to face time, it makes it so real for me. It's so rewarding to see everything that, um, just being in the space and being an ally and a business owner in this space, my experience and the patterns that I see that you guys are already fulfilling, some of the things that I think other chambers struggle with. It's like you already, and it could be, 40 years of being around. I mean, there, there's been some time on the planet, some time in the space, and that makes a huge difference. Seems like there should be some kind of boot camp or something so people can kind of get their sea legs on how to do this and do it well, not to copy. But I think if everybody does what you said, align in truly what your mission is, and then deliver on that, and not be so much of a organization that accepts whatever money comes, right? Because some other organizations could have an agenda. They want to have their logo someplace, or they want to sell more of their beverages or whatever, and this is an exchange, right? And that's what I'm hearing from you. That's so very, very powerful. It's like you're very clear on your value, and you're clear on what value others can bring to you, and you're transparent. That's what I'm hearing. And that makes people excited.
Yeah, and there's so much more to do. I think that's the thing that keeps us all going. And if other organizations want to copy us, please do. We encourage that. We share our information with all of our partner chambers around the country, and we're happy to do that. We would love to see them all thrive and work towards social justice together. It's not about us being on the top. We're very lucky that we have been around for a long time, that we've had great and passionate founders and members and visionaries for a long time, and that's put us in a unique position that we want to share that, and we want to see everybody succeed. It's about rising tide floating all boats kind of philosophy, and so there's room for everybody, and if we can stick our foot in the door of establishment and push that door open wider for everybody else to come through, then that's called winning the game for all of us.
That is.
Yeah.
So if I were to ask you to sum up, what would you say is the GSBA, return on inclusion? What does that mean, if you were to sum it up?
The return on inclusion. So I'm a firm believer in the way that we grow as human beings in society is based on diversity of opinion and diversity of knowledge and experience. And that if we only read from one book or listened to one teacher, that we'd be pretty one-sided. And the beauty in our world comes from that diversity and from the sort of unique contribution that each person and each community can bring. And that's really what I think our country was based on, that we've lost track of. That I read, what was it the other day, that if we live here, we're all either we were a slave or an immigrant or a refugee, and or indigenous. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's made us unique. We haven't fully embraced all of that, and we haven't really allowed everybody to have their full and rightful place. But through that inclusion, I think we will evolve to a better society and a more equal, fair, and just society.
That is incredibly amazing. And it's exactly how I feel. And it's what keeps me producing the publication. Again, I'm like you. It's not about ads in the magazine. It's really about being able to have a platform where I can have discussions like this about you, and no one's paying us to tell this story. We want the truth, and we want to amplify it. And what you're doing is a beautiful thing, not only for the organization, but for Seattle and for the state of Washington. The gem that you are brings value. It's that return on inclusion. You're being inclusive, and what you're able to create is bigger than you. You're fighting you're fighting out of your class, right? You're just way out there, just above your class, as they say. And it's such an amazing thing that you put in place. The organization, I'm very thankful for you and for the founders and for all of the members and the corporate partners that are showing up in ways that, quite frankly, they don't show up that way maybe in other places. But when you know who you are, and you insist on alignment, and you have a value proposition that they understand, it's almost as if you're like the cool club, like they want to be in, right? Because I want to put my brand next to this because this is good for me. And I think that's a good thing. And the other thing that you pointed out, that's been an observation of mine over the years, is having a place for the employee resource groups to engage. To me, that's one of the best assets. I mean, in any company, it's the humans that are the biggest assets, the people. And so what better way would you have than allow your diverse folks in your company to engage with their community and be your eyes and ears on how to make things better? And it just seems so natural, but it's not intuitive to some. It's in some places I've seen it where the ERGs are just called when they need someone to staff a booth, right? And that's kind of transactional. So I love what you're doing. I'm so grateful that you've agreed to, in such quick order, have an interview and to answer questions. So, I mean, they're perfect. The questions were answered perfectly.